Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be taking a tour of the garden and showing you what's in bloom. As you can see behind me, the hydrangeas are in peak season, and there'll be a few other things as well. So stick around and enjoy the video. We're going to start our tour today with this bed here. And I will say that I'm really loving how this is looking at the moment. Not quite finished mulching. I need to get the rest of the way up. But we've been having so much rain and the mulch is wet, so I wait until it's a bit drier before moving mulch. But you can see the lamb's ear, the nepeta. This is a dwarf Alberta spruce. These are darling clementine coreopsis. And then on the other side over here, this yellow is a type of agastache. This is a carnival hibiscus. I planted it there for the contrast in leaves, but it blooms these beautiful red blooms that we will see later in the month, so probably on the August tour. These are roses that I've cut back in preparation for their second flush. And of course, there are Black Eye Susan, what were daylilies bloomed already. There's some phlox in here. This is a Weigela. There's some liatris. This is rose campion right here. I love the contrast of the leaves. Same thing with this lamb's ear. Can't have everything be the same color and the same tone of the color. So one of the things that I want to do in the fall is to shift this ivory halo dogwood up to here so that it's right up front. It's being hidden by the canna leaves. More nepeta. I transplanted and actually divided this nepeta at the start of the season, and just this growth is just in a couple of months. I added it throughout the garden bed. Really, Lola? Seriously? Anyway, there's a dahlia back here. This is a bloomstruck hydrangea, a stiletto rose that is absolutely stunning. The Japanese beetles had a go at it, as well as these cone flowers. You could see how they destroyed the petals, but they're almost done. This catnip volunteered, and it is always full of the biggest and loudest bees. But I let it stay so that it could help fill out this area, but I'm going to have to remove it at the end of the season because it's just too big. You can't even see the Fothergiller that's behind it, as well as the other things. This is a Cocosmia, and I purchased these hibiscus head over heels desire at Costco. I bought 4, and out of the 4, only 2 grew. So a bit disappointed, 50-50. But the 2 that did grow, this one has several blooms on it, bloom buds, and I'm excited. This is ginger and more nepeta. This Florentina rose has already been through its first bloom and is gearing up for its second set. This is more ginger. Let's start here. These are quickfire hydrangeas, as well as salmon star Asiatic lilies. And let me get you a closer look at those. These are absolutely stunning. It rained last night, so you still have droplets of rain. Just beautiful. And it plays nicely with the quick fire hydrangea. There is actually a dahlia here and a rose that's this orangey color, so it carries on that theme. This is a crinum lily that I foraged from an old estate with permission from the owner's grandson. Well, the owners have passed away, but from a grandson. This is Buddleia pink. First season in the garden. It was also a gift from a friend. I recently added this hibiscus to this bed, and as you can see, she's opening up. This is head over heels passion hibiscus. So similar to this color to carry that scheme along in this bed. This is a Julia Child rose that's putting out new leaves and new flush of blooms. All my roses were very diseased, so I just whacked them all back, and they're putting out new leaves and looking so much healthier. The shade garden at the moment is all filled out and looking fairly decent. Needs some more stuff for contrast and color. The shade garden and this one other area in the yard are areas I'll be focusing going forward for the rest of the season. This is those are more salmon star Asiatic lilies, and another quick fire. This is a Bola Beauty peony and a Maimone Weigela from Proven Winners. These are strawberry salvia. There are 3 of them, one over here, one here, and the other here. The daylilies have already bloomed. These gladiolas have not bloomed because they're a type of gladiola that blooms later in the summer. They send up this white and purple blooms, which will play nicely with the quick fire hydrangea. This bed is really looking like I want it to look. Loving the addition of the nepeta this year. I divided the ones over there, like I told you, behind me, and I added pieces here. I actually want to go and divide some more of them and drop another piece here. I think it'll look more finished. Excuse me. This year, I actually divided this phlox and placed it several other places in the garden. I have this purple as well as this pink. In here is a hardy hibiscus that I transplanted to this area. Everything in my garden is always a work in progress. I don't know if any gardener who can say this area is done. And as a result of it being done, I never have to touch it again. I've added some angelonia for some later season color. And this salvia is just blooming its head off. This is 4 o'clocks. And of course, they're not open right now. That's part of the charm of them. They open towards 4 o'clock. And so that is the option. This is more nepeta. This Asiatic lily, it's just now blooming. It's the first year blooming. This is a Dragon Master Japanese maple behind it, and it looks like it had a bit too much sun when it was initially planted, and so it's shedding those leaves but leafing back out, so altogether healthy. Look at this balloon flower, white. This is another one of those carnival hibiscus. I'm going to come back through and pull out that 4 o'clock that's shading it. I need it to get more sun. Here are 3 more salvias. There's 1, 2 here, and there's a third on the other side of this arborvitae. Y'all, I'm not going to be apologizing for my yard, whether it's not mowed or you'll see things, because it's a working yard. And sometimes in the middle of doing something, I have to leave to go help my husband. So, and there you are. In the case of lately, I've had to run and leave the tools because of thunderstorms. There's another hardy hibiscus that I planted. I transplanted this year. I moved it from where it was. It wasn't getting enough sun. This is a Zephyrdrune rose back in here. Did you hear that buzzing? That was a bee trying to go at my face. Look at that gladiola, y'all. Isn't that gorgeous? And I love the texture of this baptisia that it adds after it's done blooming. That's a cherry's jubilee. And this burgundy foliage is a 9-bark. Now, one of the things I'm loving at this time of year are my limelight hydrangea hedge. Is that not stunning? I love it when they all bloom out and all you see are white. I should have done this tour about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago when all the daylilies were in bloom and more of the Asiatic lilies were in bloom. But my garden and my yard were a mess and I had to get it together because, I'd hurt my knee and couldn't do what I needed to do. So I had to get it together before I felt comfortable showing it to someone. But there's still more color to come. Another hardy hibiscus, and I love the color on this gladiola as well. This stargazer lily is a 2nd year. And then I added these coleuses with the chartreuse and burgundy along the hedge every so often. I added some Dusty Miller, and you'll see Nepeta and lamb's ear repeating also. This is a Rose of Sharon. Again, that purple theme, and this is a liatris. Love the texture of this false gold cyper. Another hibiscus here, and then more gladiolas. That's a double knockout rose. And then this pot, y'all. I made this pot out of things I had on hand in the yard, and it turned out so nicely. I had some penta, which is right here, that I purchased for another pot, and I had 2 left over, so I put those there. I have this carex grass lining this front border. I just dug some up and stuck it there. I have the sedum, the variegated sedum, right here throughout the garden, and I added some there. It's actually just one piece, and it's perfectly laid itself out like this into 3, looking like 3 pieces. I had this one Angelonia left over, and then I had this coleus from another project, and then I dug some creeping jenny out of other pots and put it here, and so it's taking off, and this creeping jenny is going to hang down the front and make it look like a really pretty. I had to move out of the sun. My camera would not work. It said it was too hot. So I'll get back to where I was in a second, but take a look at this dahlia for a second. It's the first one in the yard to bloom, and I have several blooms more to come. It's going to be a good year for certain dahlias. My sweet Mademoiselle Rose is also getting ready with her 2nd flush, but the Japanese beetles won't leave it alone. Matter of fact, there's one right there. Look at how beautiful those are. It's just so many more coming. I don't even know what the name of this one is. I planted years ago, and it just comes back every year, but this is the best year for it so far. These are blackberry lilies. I love the blooms. I also love the little swirly things that happen once they're done blooming. Even I find that just as pretty as the actual bloom. But yes, sweet Mademoiselle Rose. They were all diseased before. Do you see how this rose has grown back with such pretty foliage? This is an Earth Angel rose. We dug here to install the fountain, so it's kind of bare at the moment, but it'll fill back in. My pots has artemisia, a dahlia in it, and these wave petunias. Here's another dahlia that is starting to bloom. And we'll do a dahlia bloom tour later in the season as they all begin to open. This is Cornell Bronze. And that's the celosia back there. Fountain. I just cleaned it and added algae stopper. It doesn't seem like I've added enough. I followed the instructions. So I'm going to keep adding a couple of drops until I hit the magic amount to keep it algae free. But it's looking good nonetheless. So happy that we were blessed with that fountain. Excuse the half-dead lily behind it. They are going through storing up energy for next year, and they'll be cut back soon enough. These are bolero roses, and in the rose tour that I did, they were full of disease. Cut them all the way back, and now they are back and flushing out with new blooms, and they're no disease. This charisma rose that's right there in the middle of the screen, that bright orange color, that rose has been in this garden bed forever, and this is the healthiest it's looked. It actually lost all its leaves and then is now coming back with a vengeance. Look also at that agastache next to it. I think it's called Merlot. Here is this rose. I just love all the frilliness of it. I still don't know what this one is called. Here's my dahlia patch. You can see we're going to have a pretty good show. This is an Earth Angel rose. Next to these purple angelonias. More Earth Angel. And another of these peachy roses. I like to repeat so that you see the same colors as you're going down through the garden. Let me go back around to where we were when the camera cut out. This is the Serendipity Allium by Proven Winners. Look at the bees taking a morning nap. That's another Coreopsis that I have. And this is lamb's ear and that carex grass and coleus that we talked about before. And it just keeps repeating down the border. Here's the other side of the dahlia bed. I'm going to insert some footage of this lily when it was in bloom. So beautiful. As well as this one when it was in full bloom. So these are Vitex trees, and I have one here, and that's one right there on the other side. I moved them from where they were, and they are really flourishing and taking off this year. This is a Veronica. More Angelonia right here. More of this allium. My goal is to repeat this allium lamb's ear all the way down to the end, but I've done here, here, there, and another one so far, and here too, right here as well. This is Purple Dream. Asiatic lily. And the reason it's on the ground is that storm we had last night. I need to come back through and tie some things up, etc. More Veronica here, as well as there. All the roses in this bed were only cut back last week, so I don't expect another flush of blooms for another 3 to 4 weeks. Stargazer lilies are one of my favorite lilies. They were actually in my wedding bouquet, and I decided to plant some in honor of that. They smell heavenly. These are berry coneflower, and of course, that butterfly. Had to have its moment on camera, huh? Another one of those cherries, Jubilee Baptisia, and more of the coleus. This is my honeysuckle, which has gone through its first flush of blooms. I'm waiting for it to do it again. It's a favorite of the hummingbird visitors to my yard. Another one of these Rose of Sharon intermingled with this limelight hydrangea. I just love these big poofy blooms. But I wanted to show you, look at this. Isn't that pretty? Oh, there's a hummingbird farther up the road feeding. I can see it, but it won't pick up on camera. Hopefully he makes his way down this way. The garden is looking very lush, albeit could use a bit more color at this time of the year. But I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. This is a LaBarbe bluebeard. The pollinators love this plant, and it has put on a show this year that's just unstoppable. Do you see how huge this thing was? I should insert some footage of what it looked like, how small it was when I planted it, and that's done so very well. More angelonia, and this is my path. I've got to get some pavers to put here. Could you imagine how large these dahlias are going to be, considering how big the trunk of this thing is? This is a nitty gritty peach rose, more coleus, and another bolero rose. And there's a dahlia behind it. I need to divide this lamb's ear. So my pots have Artemisia, a dahlia, and a coleus, and this wave petunia. So we started at the vitex tree, and we're going to go around to this Miss Huff Lantana. She has been in my garden for many years. I know there's this belief that lantanas spread. I've not seen it. She's been here. I cut her back every fall. She comes back every spring, does this majestic show, and that's it. Now, let me get you a bit closer to these tiger lilies. They are so stunning to me. And there's just a beautiful show. These are second year blooming. Stems are not as sturdy. Next year they'll be better. These are limelight hydrangeas that I added. This is our bedroom. My husband loves limelight hydrangeas. And so I planted these to have them next to our bedroom. Then you can look right out and see them. More crocosmia and limelight hydrangeas. This is a knockout rose that I pruned all the way back. You can see all this beautiful new foliage. This is what all the old foliage looked like, just diseased. But the new stuff is coming in better. This is a Julia Child rose. Look how beautiful she's being, and there's a daddy long leg. Liatris, dappled willow, and autumn joy sedum. Crocosmia, and a big bee. Hummingbirds love the crocosmia too. Here is the last of the big pots, and it has the same recipe: coleus, wave petunia, and it also has some creeping Jenny. I took the dahlia out of this one. Those are limelight hydrangeas as well. This is a strawberry vanilla, but I'd never get the strawberry color here because of our heat. It doesn't get cool enough. Now I've come to this bed and I want you all to have a little mercy on me. I've not gotten to it. All the other beds I've cleaned up. This one is on the agenda to do next. The front is together as it's gonna be. So I need to come now and work on this one. But one of the things about this bed is daylilies start blooming later, but they also last longer. Look at these. These are double orange. I have the names somewhere. I'll put the names on the screen because I think they're so, so pretty. There's some black-eyed Susan back there. And these are tiger lilies that haven't opened yet. This is oxalis, the purple kind. More of these daylilies. Need to come back and cut down all the bloom stalk and get rid of all this Virginia's wort that's now played out. All right, now I can give you a better look at the gladiolus. Isn't that pretty? I mean, just the shade of color. And I have them dappled along. Excuse me. This is a hydrangea called Phantom. It's pretty big, the blooms, but it's getting so much shade from this tree. May need to relocate it. The roses all need to be pruned back here. I have not done that yet. This is an Orient pet lily. I will insert footage of what that looks like in bloom. You have Queen Anne's lace as well as a yellow butterfly bush. This is a red crocosmia. And these are sweet drift roses. I'm going to come back and cut them off. There won't be any blooms on those back here. This is another stargazer lily. Isn't that beautiful? This was a different type of Orient Pet Lily, and I'll insert footage of that as well. This is a Pikachu hydrangea from Better Homes and Gardens. I love that variety. Tiger lilies. I love all the texture that the ferns provide in this garden bed. This is a quick fire. I think I may move this and put some more low growing things. I think what I'm going to do is add several of these across the front to give color, because they're the first hydrangeas in my yard, these quick fires, to bloom, and they give color all season long. More of that red crocosmia. This bed is a work in progress. I'm going to come back and clean up through here. I did the front part this week, but I need to get the back. This is an Oakland holly by Southern Living Plants. It's doing really well and likes where it is. It's putting out new leaves. My plan is to make this part sun, part shade bed. This is a black lace elderberry, and this is a flowering almond shrub. So that's a spring bloomer. This is an andina. Forsythia for spring. Liatris here. This is a spirea, so it blooms early summer. These glads have already bloomed. These black-eyed Susans are just coming into bloom. This is an aster. This is a rose campion, which has already bloomed. Blooms this magenta color. And I'm letting it go to seed here, and then I'll be able to transplant it like these. These were all seeded from the previous garden season. Now this butterfly bush I thought had died with the polar vortex. You could see how large the base is. It's like a tree. And it took a while, but it's come back and it's blooming its head off. And I suspect it'll survive to bloom another day. Here's another one of those quick fire hydrangeas. And this is a little lime. It has one bloom, but this area I added to in the spring. This is a head over heels blush hibiscus. And it was in this bed, but it wasn't getting enough sun. So this is the first year. We now have 2 sprouts. I don't expect blooms this year, but next year I believe it'll be producing. That's a limelight hydrangea that I planted this spring. We'll get some blooms next year, probably. More black-eyed Susans. And this is echinacea that has since bloomed. More liatris. And this is an abelia. I don't have a clue what kind it is. It's been here almost as long as that Japanese maple has. And the two of them together complement each other so nicely. And the colors on this abelia, you can notice it from across the yard. And the bees love it. It's always a buzz with pollinators. And there you go. As we're standing here, they come flying in. More black-eyed Susans that's not opened yet. This is another quick fire hydrangea, settling in this year and putting on a lot of growth. It had some issues where it was tiny, wasn't growing. Same thing with this hibiscus here. Here's another liatris. And more tiger lilies. This is a little lime hydrangea. And then there's a limelight back there. But this one is getting shaded, so I'm going to dig it out. It's back here. I'm going to dig it out and put it next to my office building. And we are back here. Oh, let me show you something. I forgot to mention this crinum lily. There are actually two, but I'll show a picture, excuse me, of what it looks like in full bloom. I love old-fashioned flowers, or so-called old-fashioned flowers. I recently planted this climbing rose, Crown Princess Margareta. There's a butterfly. That's an admiral butterfly. So there's not really much happening in this bed. It's kind of played out, but I wanted to show you these Peruvian daffodils. Aren't they pretty? They look so dainty. Here's a white wedding hydrangea, backed up by these heirloom yellow roses. This is Cocosmia here. More white wedding. These are from Southern Living Plants. Do you see the lizard? Hi. White wedding hydrangeas. There are 3 in this bed, and in between those 3 are these 2 yellow heirloom roses. More yellow Cocosmia. And then this bed is bordered by a series of hollies. Holly compactum. Here's some more liatris. This is another crinum lily. Blue's the same as the one in the first bed next to the quickfire hydrangea. So many bees out in the garden today. This is what I wanted when I planted all the things that I planted. This is a type of salvia. It's a perennial here in my garden, and more liatris. We are up by my office. There's really not much up here blooming at this time. I have some dahlias and some lamb's ears. As I thin, I've been just planting to create this bed. So this bed is going to be a composition of what's around the yard. This is a Westerland climbing rose. More dahlia. This is a golden celebration rose. So all my roses are waiting on their second flush. And of course, dahlias and roses, but not much blooming up here. A friend sent me these chrysanthemums. They're heirloom varieties, and they're doing really well. It's not much growing or blooming. I mean, it's a nice lush bed. It's just that there is a pause in blooms for the time being. Thank you so much for joining me today as we took a tour of the garden. As always, if you've enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. Until next time, happy gardening.